Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Ben Jacobson. I am the digital marketing strategist here at Page One Power. We're back for another episode of SEO from home from Page One Power. For those of you who may not have seen any of our previous episodes, basically this is a real loose, casual conversation that we're having. We're talking with SEO industry experts from all over the place. And we're talking about SEO while we're at home in this kind of weird circumstance. And yeah, if you guys haven't seen any of those previous episodes, they are all up at pageonepower.com, or you can find us, of course, on YouTube. Just search Page One Power SEO from home. However, today we are back with our very own Norm from in-house here at Page One Power. He is our senior content strategist, and he's going to be talking with us today about how to build content for search. So this is a really important topic that I think a lot of people are very interested in right now, because people are starting to kind of understand the importance of why your content matters and how you can build that to better serve your business purposes online. So we're going to be talking about that with Norm today. We have some Q&A options for you guys at the bottom there. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little Q&A box. You guys can just click on that and type in any questions you have. We have a few points that we want to cover today, but we definitely encourage you guys to ask any questions and we'll address those as we can. We're also going to be live tweeting today, so if you guys do want to engage with us that way, definitely do so. You can tag us at Page One Power on Twitter. Be sure to use the hashtag SEO from home. So all of that being said, I'm going to let you take it away, Norm. Go ahead and tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for the intro, Ben, and thanks for having me. I'm glad to be joining in on this series. I'm in really good company. I know I've watched some of the recordings and I caught a couple of them live, but this has been a really great series for me, and I do SEO for a living. So I've found it really informative and definitely had some good perspectives brought to me. Like Ben said, I'm the content creation strategist at Page One Power. So when we are creating content for different websites, for different campaigns and different strategies, I usually have a few fingers in that pie. But the great thing about SEO is everything is kind of connected, everything's related. So while I kind of bring a content-centric perspective to things, I'm interested to answer any questions that anyone wants to have. I definitely have some of my frequent flyers that I talk about constantly with lots of different people. But I'm super open to whatever you're curious about, what problems you're dealing with, or I don't know what changes you're seeing that you want to talk about. So I definitely encourage participation. This is going to be pretty fast and loose. Don't be afraid to chime in. Awesome. Ben's going to help keep me on track and let me know if questions pop up. So definitely use the Q&A feature here in Zoom.
Cool. Awesome. Well, let's just kind of jump right into it. We have one topic that I think everyone's probably going to be asking right off the top of their head. Let's start super broad here. What's the number one consideration that you should be looking for when you're building content for search? If you were to kind of surmise it in one general rule of thumb, like how would you maybe explain that?
I can summarize it in one word: readers. The number one consideration you should have when you're creating content for search is your readers. I think people get really, really in the weeds talking about keywords and DA and all these different metrics and all these different technical considerations. And they can kind of forget, when you're creating content for search, you're not creating it for Google. You're not creating it for an algorithm. Ultimately, you want to be discovered so that someone will click on a page, click on your result, read what you have to say, and be satisfied with that. So if you create content for readers, for your audience, all else will follow. The saying, even a broken clock is right twice a day. Even if you have no real knowledge of writing for the web or SEO or HTML or any of these technical things, if you have deep subject matter expertise in your area, or if you're really passionate about something, you can probably rank in search in Google just by being great at what you do and writing well. If you want to make it a repeatable success, that's when a little bit more strategy and a little bit more research comes into play. But ultimately, create content for people. That's the biggest consideration. And I think that's the biggest blind spot that people and companies and websites have, is they forget this is for people by people. So that's the biggest takeaway I could possibly have for anyone.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. I think a lot of times what I'm sure you've seen this, people get so, as you mentioned, caught up in the weeds of arguing over nitpicky things that I think that they forget that the whole algorithm itself is, it's essentially a computer program that's trying to simulate real, genuine interest. So if you instead forego all of the technicalities behind it and you just instead aim for what that true North Star is, which is your readers, like you mentioned, I think that it tends to lend itself to much more consumable content. Like I can tell, I mean, maybe it's because I've been around it a little bit, but I can tell when someone's trying to write something just for the sole purpose of ranking. And I'm biased, but it's an immediate turnoff. Like, it's like, okay, well, you kind of forced this in here. So yeah, that's a really interesting point. Do you think that building this content do you think building the like content creation, like how does that serve your actual SEO goals though? Do you think that you need to have like a specific content marketing strategy in order to rank, or do you think that it's something that you can base off of more of your altruistic nature?
If you want to rank consistently, you need a strategy. It's possible to rank accidentally, but you usually don't rank by accident or just through sheer passion or sheer brilliance in really competitive spaces. Your expertise usually doesn't correlate with a product necessarily. So there's a lot of competition for product-centric words, laptop, online degree, car, bank account, those kinds of really transactional queries. Those are really competitive and they're hard to rank for, but that's kind of a small share of all the different things that people search for. So if you want to rank consistently, and if you want to build up a sort of digital reputation and online footprint of expertise and value and trustworthiness that allows you to rank consistently and in increasingly competitive spaces, you got to have a strategy. You need consistency, and you need a plan, and you probably need a team of people who can criticize work and go, all right, this covers our keywords and this looks better than what's currently ranking. This is better than our competition, and that's all great. But you still have to bring it back to, is this the best way to serve readers? Is this going to be the most satisfying to people as they search currently? So there's a lot of ways that content marketing or content creation can support your SEO goals. Not all content can be optimized for search. Not all content needs to be, but if you really want to be relevant and visible and get traffic to your website, you definitely want to have at least a component of your content marketing strategy be very search centric. Like I said, you can fail into ranking well, you can accidentally rank well, but that's not a strategy. That's just dumb luck, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I think from what a lot of times I see is that people see almost anecdotal evidence of how they ranked. I mean, you start laughing because I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about, but people present anecdotal evidence as law. And I think that a lot of that gets kind of lost in translation of, it may have worked in this instance, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the true way in order to do it.
Well, it's a tricky thing because the Google algorithm, or really any search algorithm, is kind of a black box. No human brain can comprehend all of these things, kind of the same way. When you know something tastes good, unless you're a professionally trained chef or some savant, some sommelier, you can't necessarily deconstruct everything that makes it good. You just know it when you taste it, right? It's kind of the same way with search. Even the best, most versed SEO expert probably can't tell you every single thing that matters in Google's algorithms.
Sure.
but they have a general sense of things that matter. So when we try to deconstruct the algorithm and reverse engineer it, which many tools have attempted to do to varying degrees of success, what we're usually doing is we're looking at correlation. I change this and this is the result that I get. But there's so many interrelated variables that they all matter a little bit. It's hard to know exactly how much they matter and in what order in relationship to each other. We just kind of have this bouquet of different factors that we know are ranking factors. So I can kind of be patient and forgiving to an extent toward people who go, well, here's an anecdote about something that worked really well for me. But when all you have to go off is correlational data, it's really easy to assign too much importance to the wrong thing. Like if I have a blog, let's say it's a recipe blog. I'm a real fan of soufflés, so I create normsoufflés.com. It would make sense that I would have a lot of pictures on that blog. And I might say, I took really good pictures of all of the stages of my soufflés, and that's why I ranked. And you would look at my website and you go, I can see what he's talking about. It's probably true. That may actually be detrimental to my site. They may not be mobile optimized. They might be really low quality images. And it's the quality of my writing that is actually allowing me to rank. If I tell you something was important and you can kind of see, yeah, that's reflected on the website, it can be really hard to figure out, is that actually what made the difference? Or is that incidental? It's almost impossible to assign precise focus to different ranking factors to understand what's important in what context. And there's kind of a truism in SEO that says you can really judge how much someone knows about SEO by seeing how often they answer questions with "it depends," because that's the real truth of SEO. What's the most important thing? What is allowing this page to rank? What does my website need? It depends. It's not linear. It's not straightforward. There's a lot of constantly shifting variables that all matter a little bit.
I just laugh because that phrase is so prolific. I feel like at Page One Power, like I literally remember the day that I was hired. I remember my manager being like, "You're gonna hear this a lot," specifically, and yeah, I remember Patrick was like, "Yeah, you're gonna hear it depends a lot," and it's true. I mean, I think there's, and also I think that's a fair buffer against like change. I mean, I think the other factor is that even if you were to find like what that holy grail recipe is, like who's to say that 2 weeks from now, like there's not going to be a new update that like completely derails that theory or that algorithm chance for you. So that's interesting. Taking a step back, if you were to say that hyper focusing on a singular element or a singular change as how it's going to increase your ranks, if you're to zoom back a little bit, are you seeing like if there's a general type of content that's helping attract links? Are you seeing that like what type of content creation is helping to garner positive links?
There are a lot of ways to earn links. I would say the best way to get links is by creating content that is unique, original. If you have any capacity to do original research, hard data, quantitative type content, that's hugely valuable. People love that. I understand that can be a huge limiting factor for a lot of different organizations. If you can't provide original research, you can always provide original commentary. Reviews are as popular as ever. People love critics. And it doesn't have to be negative. I don't say critic or review to suggest you have to have negative things to say, but having an expert insight to present, being able to compare things, that's all hugely valuable. And that's, if you're doing it right, that's a unique voice, an original perspective. That kind of thing can earn you links too. I mean, we're going into an election year. What is the function of an endorsement, right? It's sort of a, don't take my word for it, someone else is saying something that I agree with. That's kind of how links work. So If you can say something in an articulate, expert, original way about a topic that people care about, that is an opportunity for you to earn links. So there's a million different ways that you can achieve unique and original content. But in the broadest sense, I would say those are the two big categories. You can be doing original research where you have proprietary facts and figures to provide, or you can provide a unique and original perspective, commentary, criticism, reviews, whatever. But it's an ocean of opportunity for the right person, if you know what you're talking about and you're passionate.
Sure. So if you're, let's say that you are running a website out there and you're trying to find obviously something inside of your space to where you can be a subject matter expert on it. However, how do you kind of whittle that down from, let's say that I'm a photographer and I understand this vast array of photography. How do you go from, I know everything about photography, to I'm going to create this piece of content that's going to help drive traffic to my site? So how do you find like those searchable topic ideas and, you know, for lack of a better phrase, like keyword researching? Like how do you find those types of things? Do you have any suggestions or strategies?
Oh, sure. Let me start with what you shouldn't do. And I think this is a really, really almost universal mistake that people make in approaching keyword research and topic ideation. To use the photography website example, what you should not do is start with what you want people to do on your website. If your attempt to attract traffic or earn links to your website begins with, well, what's in it for me and how do I get what I want out of the bargain? You're kind of doing it wrong. Going back to that first question, what's the most important consideration? Readers. What is in it for the readers? If they click on a page on your website, what information are they going to get? What experience are they going to have? What is going to leave them satisfied that they clicked on your page, your result? So if you kind of flip the script and instead of going, what do I want out of it? Think, what do I have to provide? What pain points do people have that I can solve? So in photography is huge. If you know everything about photography and you're a true expert, that's too much. What about someone who's brand new to photography? What do they not know that you can help with? How to buy a camera, color versus black and white photography. You can get really granular with topics, but if you frame your topics and how you think about topics based on pain points that you know people have, possibly, preferably that you can relate to because you've gone through similar experiences, you've had to do similar research. How do I do X, Y, Z? Start with that. And once you know what problem you're trying to solve or what experience you want to offer, what subject you want to elaborate on, that is where I would start my keyword research. I probably wouldn't start by just going photography. Give me a list of every related keyword or query that's ever been asked related to photography. That's way too big. It's indigestible. You'll end up with a spreadsheet that's really, really rich with data that you don't know what to do with. Start with readers, consider their pain points, consider their perspective, have some creative empathy, and start figuring out how they search for answers to the pain points and the questions they have. And that is how I would approach keyword research. Because all you're really trying to figure out is what terms and what phrases do people use to ask for the information they want. That's what keyword research is. It's not, what's the biggest opportunity for me to get traffic? Or what keyword do I need to have at the highest density to get my website to rank highly? That's not what's going on. You're trying to figure out, how can I be a resource for people? Because Google isn't looking for keywords or all these different metrics. Google's using metrics to figure out what the best answers are, where the best information is held, which websites are going to be most satisfying to searchers. So cut to the chase, focus on the searcher, focus on their intent, and figure out how to address it.
Makes total sense. I mean, you'd think it'd be that simple, but I mean, you don't make as much money trying to do consulting and stuff if you just tell people to focus on the basics there. So that's interesting. So let's say that you are running, again, we'll go back to a small website. If you're generally creating content, how do you build optimization into that process of finding your topic and, from start to finish? How do you fit optimization into that process?
Well, optimization can mean a lot of different things. Like we've talked about, lots of stuff matters. If you start with the searcher and focus on the searcher's experience, a lot of optimization will kind of take care of itself. You do some keyword research and you find out how people search for this question. You're going to have a very keyword rich article right there. Notice I didn't say include this keyword at such and such density or use this many permutations of it so it seems like natural language. No, just find out what people want to know and write fluently and accessibly about it. That's a pretty solid baseline. There are more technical considerations, but they also tend to correlate with a searcher experience. What you see in a SERP is a title tag. The blue link that you click on, that's a title tag. So if you consider it from the searcher's perspective, a title tag that is very descriptive of the content that they're looking for and matches the question that they were searching for, that's an optimized title tag. So you don't have to really deconstruct it that far to go, wow, title tags matter a lot. That's what people actually interact with. They don't click on a meta description. They don't click on your URL. They click on your title tag. That's the blue link that Google's going to deliver. So get that right. Make it descriptive, make it coherent, and make it match what you're actually talking about on the page. Don't make it, well, here's what I want you to do. So if you're a photography website, let's say you sell custom lenses. I don't know if that's a thing. We'll say that it's a thing.
It is now.
If you're going to provide a guide to buying a black and white camera, a guide to black and white photography, lens probably doesn't belong in the title. But something that I see very, very frequently is if lens retail is your bread and butter, it can be tempting to want to make every page on your website about that at the top level. But best lenses for black and white photography is a different question than beginner's guide to black and white photography or picking a camera for black and white photography. So don't let your goal supplant the actual purpose of the page from the searcher's perspective. And again, as long as you're focused on that person, you'll have a good title that resonates with them. You'll have content that is created to answer their question. It's structured in a way so that as they scroll, they're getting more value. They're continuing to learn and be rewarded for their engagement because you're answering their question and you're adding depth and you're presenting additional food for thought, related questions that you probably need answered once you understand the basic thing, presented. The other really big thing that I would throw out there is deliver value early. I think it's kind of a trope among really creative writer types, but it's also a tendency among, I think, webmasters in general to think, I have a really optimized title. I'm trying to rank this page for this keyword. I don't want them to click out really quickly, so I don't want to give up the game immediately. So if the question is, who is the president of the United States? Simple answer. Doesn't even need to be a complete sentence, right? We're looking for a proper noun. It can be really tempting to go, well, that's too simple. People won't click on my content if I just give them the answer. That's a bad mindset because that's what people are using Google for. They want the answer. So if my page for who is the president of the United States includes 500 words of preamble where I talk about the history of the presidency and when the most recent election took place and, what swearing this particular president into office looked like and what books he swore over. Nonsense. It might be related information. It might even be valuable information, but it's not the essential information that people are looking for when they search for that type of query. Open with the most essential information, deliver that gratification early, and then demonstrate your expertise by elaborating, providing the additional details, all that good stuff. But if you open with filler, that's when people bounce and they look somewhere else.
Well, I mean, it relates back to what you were just saying a few moments ago, or it's who's who is the person that's actually getting the benefit here. If you're
Mhm.
writing a website that's got 500 words prior to finding a simple answer, then I mean, you're serving the webmaster, you're not serving the searcher. And so, I mean,
Right.
as you mentioned, all boils down to one word: readers. That was
Yeah.
interesting. So that being said, I mean, we've talked about a few different ideas as far as things that you can do, and maybe hopefully a little bit more realism to the world of SEO. What are some of the misconceptions that you see happening inside of SEO that you personally encounter?
Because we're talking about machine intelligence, right? Google isn't operated manually. People wrote code so that bots can crawl the internet, find all the content that's out there, organize it so that when people search, when people use Google to find pages, it can quickly and accurately deliver results. And I think people kind of overextend the programmatic nature of Google and think it's a machine. Search is an algorithm, so SEO must be the source code of the algorithm. If I do SEO correctly, I will rank. Or if I do what's most important well, it will work automatically. And it's not always quite as straightforward an input output thing. Like we were kind of talking about earlier. It's sort of a what got you here won't keep you here thing. If you can rank one page for a query, it's not always going to rank. And that doesn't mean you can rank another page necessarily. You can't just go through an SEO checklist and then when you're done, you're the page one result. It's a little bit more dynamic than that. There's a lot of other ranking factors that are outside your control. So I I don't like being super literal about this, but sometimes I think it bears reminding people the O in SEO stands for optimization. It doesn't mean you're winning. It just means you have done the best you can with the factors that are within your control. You can't control how many backlinks you have. You can influence it, you can try to improve it, but ultimately there's a lot of ranking factors that aren't up to you. And that means if you've done everything right on your end, it still might not give you the result that you want, which is a very unpleasant truth, but it's also a huge misconception. You hear people all the time talking about, I'm just going to do a little bit of SEO so I get more traffic. If you do a little bit of SEO, it's probably not going to help you much. If you do everything well to the best of your ability consistently, that can start to build a track record over time where you start to see a lot more success. But it's not just a 1-2 punch where you do your SEO and then you win. It's really difficult. And going back to the what got you here won't keep you here, the way that people use language changes. What people are looking for from internet content changes. I think there's a lot of evidence already that the May 4th update that people are talking about, it mostly has to do with the huge disruption in internet traffic and web usage and personal behavior and communication that people are experiencing right now because of global events. So what does this mean to the small business owner, to the individual who just wants to do some SEO and rank? Probably not much. If you understand what people want and you have an area of expertise that you can talk about, do that to the best of your ability. But Google's just really trying to figure out, how have people's expectations changed? How have search patterns changed? And how can we accommodate that by delivering results more effectively? They didn't completely pull the rug out of search, because at this point that would do more harm than good for Google, to say nothing of everyone who's trying to use Google to rank and get traffic. So what got you here won't keep you here. And it's not a checklist. You can use a checklist to make sure that you're being thorough, but it's still just good effort, not a guarantee.
Makes sense. So we have a question which popped in. Andrew asks, so speaking of changes in search behavior, have you noticed any specific changes in the ways people search related to COVID-19?
related to COVID-19. I don't know that I've seen a lot of changes in the way that people search specifically. I think the most interesting thing that has come out of this with respect to search is it shows how quickly Google is learning at scale and improving things like auto-suggest and autocomplete to kind of show if you know, the president or a team of medical experts comes out and they deliver a report and there's news, people are going to have questions related to that. They're going to pick a sound bite or they're going to pick a turn of phrase, and that will become a search term. And they'll be searching for that at scale, maybe to find that news report, maybe because they heard someone else quote it, they saw it on social media. But you get into this kind of loop of language usage, and that kind of becomes part of Google's intelligence really, really rapidly, partly because of the scale, but I think partly just because of the intelligence that Google has of, you know, pattern recognition and natural language recognition. So again, it doesn't really change the game. It doesn't really change what SEO is or what it takes to rank, but it does kind of show how fingers on the pulse Google really is with respect to what people care about, what they're looking for, and how it's digesting these queries to try to figure out, well, what is the best source and where should I be sending people?
Interesting.
It's the news result really spilling into the web result in a profound way, I guess, is what that kind of amounts to.
Awesome. So what advice, we kind of you touched on this briefly a few minutes ago, talking about how, you know, if you're just doing a little bit of SEO here and there, it's not really hitting the O in optimization. You're not really optimizing. You're just kind of doing some of it. So there's a lot of businesses and a lot of individuals, I feel like, that are falling inside of this realm. So for those people that maybe don't have the time, or the resources, whether that's time resources or financial resources, do you have any advice for those people that maybe don't have a full team or an in-house SEO?
I can see how for the majority of businesses, like true small to medium-sized businesses, in-house SEO just isn't practical. It's maybe cost-effective is the wrong word, but it doesn't scale well compared to other investments you might make, like investing in a salesperson. But there's a lot of expertise out there that you can leverage. I'm kind of a big fan of outsourcing. I know that sounds a little self-serving considering I work for an agency, but if you approach a contractor or an agency relationship with the right mindset and a kind of appetite for learning, I think you can get a lot more lasting value out of it than what you put in. I would also say that if you don't have like the resources or the human resources to have like a large developed marketing team or a website guru who's just handling that, it still makes a lot of sense to solicit writers. You can certainly use contract writers. I think it's probably worth reaching out in your industry, in your space, or in your community if you're more of a local business, and do like guest post exchanges with different writers to get yourself out there, to get a little bit of content for your own site, or just leverage guest writers in general to get just quality content, a little bit more substance on your website. I know people have some kind of feeling about guest posting and that kind of thing, but if you do it correctly, which is to say you create content that makes sense for your website, that reflects your brand's expertise and value, that addresses subjects that you know your audience is interested in, that's hugely valued. There's not a huge downside to that, and there's a ton of value potential. I would also say that when it comes to SEO, if you feel like you don't have the resources to run a really sustainable campaign, or you can't constantly invest in SEO, it's at least worth investing up front to get the essentials right. Make sure that your home page is optimized. Make sure that your target pages are optimized, whether you have products or services or whatever landing page drives value and conversion for your website, get those right. And if that's all that you can do, that's pretty valuable. There's a concept out there in the world called the Pareto principle that a lot of people know of as the 80-20 rule. And something similar applies in SEO, where maybe 20% of your content is actually responsible for 80% of your traffic. Us in the working world might know it better as 20% of the people do 80% of the work, but your website usually has a similar relationship. So if you can get the most important pages right, that's a really valuable investment. If you understand what made those pages work really well and you understand your audience, you can build off of that pretty effectively.
That makes sense. I mean, I think that it's important to at least establish those bases, and then at some point, hopefully, when you do have more financial resources or time allotment, then it at least has you set up to springboard to the next step. So as let's say that you're a small business owner, if you're starting to maybe implement some of these changes, how, I'm sure you get asked this all the time, but like, how long are you expecting or advising for people to kind of be expecting to see some results? I mean, I know that it's obviously
it depends.
It depends kind of situation, but yeah, I mean, what would you say?
This is one thing that actually hasn't changed that much in the search world, and that is if it's not sustained for 3 months, it's not a trend. So if you're looking for instant gratification in search, you have the wrong expectations. Even though things change quickly and it can be a very kind of dynamic environment, if your real bread and butter traffic is dependent on search, you want that to be a trend. And that means minimum 3 months before you can say definitively, this is what Google thinks of me. This is where I'm at in search. So whether you're doing a major site overhaul, you're migrating lots of content, you're completely changing up your design, or you're engaging in a link acquisition campaign where you're just trying to earn more citations to your website, or maybe you're launching a new blog, whatever it is, it's not a trend until you can measure it consistently for 3 months. So I would say you might see blips before then, but whether they're good or bad, I wouldn't feed into it. I wouldn't give it too much credibility until you can see it consistently over 3 months. And then, of course, the more competitive a niche is, the more competitive your keywords or your SERPs, the longer that kind of lag time tends to get. And I know that can be frustrating when you really need the traffic or you really need the ROI for your SEO efforts, but the thing that I think everyone can bear to keep in mind is the easier it is for you to rank well in search, the easier it is for your competitors to displace your success. So it might be frustrating to twiddle your thumbs for 3 months while you wait for all your hard work to pay off. But if it took a month for you to win, that means it would maybe only take a month for your competitors to shoot you right back down to invisibility in search.
Or less if they have more resources.
Exactly.
So interesting. Yeah, I think that's a really good point to keep in mind. And I think, patience is a virtue kind of reigns true here. Well, that brings us to about 40 minutes into the hour, Norm. That was fantastic. I do have one last question for you here to kind of round things out, but I did want to encourage anyone, if you guys have any questions for Norm, or myself, hopefully not myself, Norm's the expert here, but if you guys have any questions you want to toss his way, be sure to pop those in the chat. We're going to go ahead and kind of let you answer this last one here. So we have a question that was submitted, and it's, why doesn't my content rank for the keywords that I want? And essentially what we're trying to figure out there is, how do you kind of troubleshoot this? You've gone through some of the steps. Maybe what are some of the missteps or common mistakes that you happen to see?
That is a super common question. In fact, I follow some of the SEO subreddits on Reddit periodically, and that's one of the most common threads. I used keywords, why am I not ranking? Or my content is better, why isn't it ranking as well? And I'm always kind of curious, compared to what? Or what do you mean you used your keywords? What do you mean your content is optimized for target keywords? The nature of the question, more often than not, is it's a little bit of a smokescreen. It's people using real SEO terminology and principles to disguise the fact that they see search as a game of extraction, by which I mean, this is the dichotomy in search. You want to rank because you're going to get something out of it. You want the traffic, you want the visibility, you want the qualified leads, whatever. That's extraction. You're not trying to express value, to provide something for searchers, to reward them for clicking on you, to make Google feel glad that it presented you as visibly as it did. So I would say, if your question is, why am I not ranking better? What you probably want to ask first is, am I taking an extractive approach to my content, or am I focused on expressing value? Because if you look at the competition, you go, well, I have a higher keyword density, or I feel like my content is better. Is it better because you wrote it and you want it to be better? Is it better because you published it more recently? Is it better because it's longer? Well, none of those are concrete metrics for quality. What you really want to do is be empathetic. Put yourself in the shoes of the average searcher who wants what you have, who is looking for the information that you think you're presenting. And if you look at it from their point of view, then the question is this really the best thing out there? Is it thoroughly answering their question? Compared to the ranking competitors, if you say yours is better, how? How is it different? If you can really nail down what those differences are in a way that's really focused on the reader or the searcher's experience, then it's a little bit more objective to go, well, mine is 1,000 words where theirs is only 500. But they also answered the question very succinctly and immediately at the top of the page, whereas I wrote 500 words of preamble to get a higher word count or a higher keyword density. In those kinds of situations, it's not a question of I used my keywords or I optimized my content. All the technical things are in place. It's a question of, did you try to make people happy? Did you try to express value? Or are you just wondering why you're not getting more clicks? Why I'm not getting more visibility on my banner ads or something? You really have to shift your mindset from extracting value for your own selfish reasons to expressing value. And I know everyone has an agenda and nothing's for free, but if you focus on expressing value, then you can have it both ways. If you focus on extracting value, you don't have much to offer. You're just there because you want the clicks, you want the traffic.
What a fantastic point to end on. I think that perfectly surmises the entirety of kind of what we're expressing here, which is focus on your audience. Make sure that you're doing what you can to help serve them and make it a positive experience for them and make them want to be on your website. So Liam asks, did you talk about backlinks? Is this the be all end all? I have seen clients with sites with great deal more value, content under a user experience, than its competitors, and it still doesn't rank.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure I heard the end all be all phrase in there. And no, nothing is the end all be all of SEO. Everything matters a little bit, some more than others. No one thing matters most. So you can have excellent content that doesn't rank well. Sometimes backlinks are a major contributing factor there. And if your really high quality content did earn more links, maybe you would appear more competitive. I have to say though, if you do a backlink audit of all 10 organic results on any given SERP, you'll see not a decline in the quantity of backlinks as you go further down the page. You'll see weird waves. You'll see peaks and troughs. I've seen plenty of SERPs where the top ranking result had a handful of backlinks and the next ranking result had hundreds of backlinks. I've seen it inverted. I've seen really high ranking content that didn't have any backlinks, but the root domain that was hosting it had a bevy of backlinks. So backlinks aren't the end all be all. They absolutely matter. They always have and they always will. The web is built on links. Never forget that. So if you're trying to diagnose underperformance, yeah, take a look at backlinks, but don't focus exclusively on, well, I need this page to get more links to compete on this SERP. You want to think a little bit more holistically. I would say, look at the number of links to your site. Look at how many different pages on your site are earning links. And even more importantly, and a lot of people tend to neglect this, and I don't understand why, look at internal links on your site. It's great if you can go viral and have, some infographic or some instructional article really explode and earn tons of links. That's great value. Google will recognize that. Is that being shared with the rest of your website? Is this lunatic fringe page that's earning all of these, signals of trust? Is it deeply relevant to your brand? Is it related in any way through internal links to the pages that you also want to rank well, that also have keywords that you care about? Often that's not the case. And if your big winners are isolated and siloed on your site, it makes sense that even the biggest backlink profile in the world isn't going to elevate the rest of your site because you haven't demonstrated how the value you expressed on this big winner is a reflection of the value you express on the rest of your site.
Makes total sense. Norm, thank you again so much for hopping in here. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys are staying well out there. That was fantastic. Thank you guys for your questions. Norm, thanks for agreeing to do this. We'll have to do it again soon.
Absolutely.
Thank all you guys for tuning in. Appreciate it. We'll try to have this recording up within the next 1 to 2 days. If you guys have any other questions that you didn't happen to get answered, be sure to send those to us on Twitter, or you can go to our website, pageonepower.com, fill out one of those forms there. Thanks again, Norm. Stay safe out there. We'll see all you guys next week. See ya.